It's open! Ah!
This happened to me last year, in October. I was on a logistics run, driving a rented box truck through rural Kansas, heading east toward Missouri. It was about 2:30 a.m. Dead quiet. Nothing but the sound of the tires and the low thrum of the engine. I remember thinking how mundane it all was. I'd been on the road for 12 hours straight. My eyes felt heavy, stuck between needing coffee and just accepting the inevitable tiredness. I had a podcast playing, some historical documentary, just loud enough to keep me company. It was totally normal. But then, the podcast cut out. Not like static, just silence. The audio completely dropped, even though the display screen showed the episode was still supposedly playing. I tried switching the channel, messing with the volume. Nothing worked. I figured it was just bad electronics in the rental truck. I pulled my phone out of the cup holder to check the signal. Totally dead. Not no bars, but completely unresponsive. Frozen on the clock display. That was the first weird chill. I drove on for maybe another 15 minutes, just trying to clear my head. Then I noticed the ambient noise had changed. It wasn't just that the podcast was gone, the whole world seemed muffled. The tire noise, the engine hum, it was all muted. It felt like I was driving through cotton wool. That's when I looked up and saw the lights. Not traffic, not a tower, but way, way up, hovering over the eastern horizon. They were too large to be stars, but they were perfectly still. 3 of them, arranged in a shallow triangle. They didn't blink, didn't move, just glowed with an intense, non-directional white light. I thought, okay, maybe a searchlight display. But there was no beam. As I got closer, the lights didn't appear to move away from me. They just seemed to grow, maintaining the exact same vertical position. That's when my heart started doing double time. They were massive, whatever they were. I hit the brakes and pulled the truck over onto the shoulder. I needed to look, but I also needed distance. My mind was scrambling for any normal explanation, military exercise, drone swarm, anything. But the silence was deafening. I got out of the cab. The air immediately felt colder than it should have been. And the hum. I finally heard it. Not a sound, exactly, but a deep, vibrating resonance that seemed to start inside my bones. It felt like pressure. The object was right there now, maybe half a mile away, hovering motionless over a freshly harvested cornfield. It wasn't a triangle, it was disc-shaped, massive, maybe the size of a football stadium, and completely black, except for those 3 relentless lights. I felt exposed. Standing on the shoulder of the highway, my tired body and mind were suddenly under observation. I didn't think about what it was, I only registered the chilling certainty that it knew I was there. The white lights beneath the disc dimmed slightly, replaced by a sudden, thin column of bluish-green illumination dropping straight down onto the field. It didn't spread, it was perfectly defined, like a laser beam hitting a single spot. I didn't move. I physically couldn't. The low hum intensified, vibrating through my jaw. My mind was screaming for me to get back in the truck, drive away, disappear. But my feet felt cemented to the asphalt. total paralysis. Out of that blue-green light, something moved. It wasn't a shadow, it was a figure. Tall, slender, unnaturally thin. It seemed to glide out of the light beam and onto the dark soil of the field. It moved too smoothly, without effort. I couldn't make out many features, not clearly. It looked like darkness made solid, absorbing the light around it. But I saw the eyes, two vertical, glowing green slits on a small, dark head. They were focused entirely on me. It raised one of its long, thin appendages, I guess a hand, in a gesture. Not waving, not threatening, but a slow, deliberate movement. Like acknowledging my presence. That was the moment the primal fear hit. Then, as quickly as it emerged, the creature retreated, gliding back into the blue-green light beam. The beam snapped off, the white lights flared brilliantly for a split second. And the entire massive disk lifted, silently, straight up. The hum disappeared, and suddenly, the world rushed back in. The sound of the wind, the low idle of the truck engine, the distant chirping of crickets. I felt the release of the pressure and almost collapsed onto the asphalt. I finally got back in the truck, shaking uncontrollably. My phone immediately powered up, showing the time had jumped forward exactly 1 hour and 47 minutes. I drove away and never looked back, but I know this, they stopped for me. And those green eyes saw everything. This happened to me in late 2024. I was driving home from a grueling 12-hour shift maintaining server banks, the kind of work that doesn't end until the sun is almost thinking about rising. It was 3:15 a.m., and I was deep in the heart of rural Colorado, maybe 50 miles from the nearest town of any size. Just me, the Tacoma, and the endless ribbon of highway. My mind was a sludge of debug logs and caffeine jitters. I was fighting that specific kind of highway hypnosis where the white lines seem to flow toward you, pulling your focus into an abyss. I cracked open the third energy drink of the night, hoping the artificial citrus punch would force me back to alertness. I was tired, profoundly tired, and just wanted my bed. The radio had given up on finding anything remotely musical 20 miles back, leaving only a low hiss of static, the soundtrack to true isolation. The air felt thin and cold, even though my heater was set to medium. I remember thinking how completely alone I was. If anything happened out here, no one would know for days. I checked my phone reflexively. Still zero signal. No Wi-Fi, no LTE, nothing. It was just me and the stars, which were intensely, impossibly bright out here, unpolluted by city light. I remember thinking how beautiful and cold the cosmos looked, feeling very small under the vast expanse. That's when I saw it. Way off my passenger side, maybe 4 miles away, low over the horizon line, was a light. But it wasn't a familiar light. It wasn't a barn fire, or a radio tower, or an airliner. It was too perfectly geometric, a sphere of brilliant, blinding white light, hovering, not moving, not flickering. My first reaction was to rationalize. Military drone? Weather balloon? I told myself it was just a spotlight from some rural event. But the light was too cohesive. It didn't cast beams, it was the source, pure and consuming. I tried to ignore it, focusing hard on the road, muttering to myself to just keep driving. As I drove, the light didn't recede. In fact, it seemed to track me. It stayed at the same horizontal distance, though now it was directly ahead, floating maybe 100 feet above the highway. My heart started that heavy, cold thumping in my chest. This wasn't a spotlight. This wasn't natural. The sphere was absolutely silent. Then the radio static intensified, turning into a piercing, high-pitched whine that vibrated the speakers. I slammed the power button, plunging the cab into absolute silence, save for the engine hum. The light, which had been static, began to pulse slowly, not flickering, but expanding and contracting like a massive, luminous heart beating in the sky. A physical coldness settled over me. It wasn't the air conditioning, it was a profound, internal chill, like someone had poured liquid nitrogen directly into my gut. I felt intensely exposed, scrutinized. The pulsing light wasn't just illumination, it felt like interrogation. I knew, definitively, that I was being looked at, assessed, by something that wasn't human. I tried to speed up, but my foot felt sluggish. Panic was starting to set in, yet something else, a terrible curiosity, overrode the impulse to flee. I slowed the truck, feeling a bizarre gravitational pull towards the phenomenon. I pulled onto the dirt shoulder, killed the engine, and the silence that followed was absolute, heavy, and unnatural. I opened the door and stepped out. The desert air hit me, but it was warmer than the air in the cab. The buzzing of insects, the subtle rush of wind, all gone. It was like I had stepped into a sound vacuum. The light above me was immense now, dominating my entire field of vision. It was beautiful, clinical, and profoundly wrong. I felt disoriented, heavy. Time seemed to stretch and warp. The world felt muted, as if the volume had been turned down to zero. I noticed a subtle, high-frequency pressure against my eardrums, a feeling that something massive was operating nearby, vibrating at a level just outside human hearing. Then, from the center of the light, something began to descend. Not dropping, but gliding down, impossibly smooth, like ink dissolving in water. It was a shape, tall and impossibly thin, absorbing the light around it. It moved with a grace that belonged neither to physics nor biology as I understood it. My breath hitched in my throat. The figure stopped at the edge of the asphalt, bathed in the eerie glow. It was 7 feet tall, maybe more, covered in skin that looked like polished, wet obsidian, reflective but not shiny. I saw my own dim reflection momentarily distorted across its slick surface. It didn't look malicious, just utterly, completely alien. Its head was too large, but what held me were the eyes. Vast, almond-shaped, pitch-black voids that swallowed the light. They weren't looking at me so much as looking through me, analyzing my composition, my biology, my memories. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, could only stand there and be catalogued. It performed a single gesture, a slow, deliberate tilt of its oversized head. It wasn't a question, but a calibration, like checking the settings on a scanner. There was no aggression, only profound, analytical curiosity. I felt my life, my essence, being compressed into a data packet. This was not a meeting, it was an inventory check. I blinked. Just one involuntary blink. When my eyes reopened, the figure was gone. Not retreated, just vanished. The space where it stood was empty asphalt. Above me, the massive light was rapidly contracting, pulling itself back into a single point, then disappearing entirely, leaving only the starlight and the silence. The natural sounds rushed back in, the wind, the chirping of crickets, the faint hum of my truck's cooling engine. I fumbled for my phone and checked the time. 3:35 a.m. Wait. That couldn't be right. I remembered seeing the light first around 3:15 a.m. It felt like I had stood there for maybe 3 minutes, but 20 minutes were missing. 20 minutes of my life, gone without explanation. I scrambled back into the cab, my limbs stiff and slow, and slammed the door shut, locking it automatically. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I wrenched the key, the engine roaring to life, and peeled out onto the highway, driving faster than I should have. The encounter felt distant already, hazy, like a complex dream that evaporates the moment you try to recall the details. I made it home. I've told no one this whole story, save for the internet now. I have no physical evidence, no burn marks, no scars. Just the certainty of that lost time and the lingering chill. That entity didn't interact with me, it analyzed me. And now, every time I look up at the stars, I know that somewhere, in some cold database of biological entities, my file exists. And they know exactly where to find me next.